The last thing that we're going to talk about today is how to look at a residual plot to see if that line, the line that best fits the data, is a good fit for your data. So in other words, could you use that line to make predictions about things, okay? So there's some really simple things that you look for to know from a residual plot. So we're going to be looking at residual plots here. To know if that line is a good fit for your data. Because remember, this is essentially the line of best fit. Remember, we just took it and made it the x-axis so we could look at it a little easier, okay? So, to know if it's a good fit, it kind of talks about it right here. It says a residual plot that is random with points dispersed around the horizontal axis or the x-axis indicates that the regression model is a good fit for the data. So, some things that you're going to look for is number one, the residual plot should look random. Should look random. Okay, and so it's not going to really have any kind of pattern to it, or it's going to be very random. Okay, the other thing is with those points, it should be pretty evenly, like you should have about the same number of points on one side of your line as the other. So that's the next part, is it should be evenly dispersed around the x-axis. And then the last thing is there shouldn't be a pattern to it. And that kind of goes along with the random part, is it shouldn't look like a picture. It should be very random. There shouldn't be a shape that's formed. And so like if it looks like the points in a residual plot are forming a line, that's actually not a good thing. Okay, and so if all of these things are true, then that means it's a good residual plot. So this is actually an example of a good plot, meaning that that line would be a good fit for your data because it's pretty random. There's about the same number of dots on one side as the other side of the x-axis, and then there's not really a pattern to it. It doesn't look like a line or a U or a shape of any sort, okay? You don't want to see a shape in a residual plot. That would be a bad thing, okay? And so that's what we mean by no pattern. So then what would the graph look like if it's not a good fit? So over here, these are actually examples of things that would not be or would mean that the line is not a good fit for your data, okay? So if it's not random, in other words, it forms a shape, like you notice these have like a U shape to them, then that means that the regression model, that line of best fit, is not a good fit for your data, okay? And so, not a good fit, here's some things to look for. If it's not random, then that's not a good thing. Or if it has some sort of pattern to it, or forms a picture of some sort and it's not random, okay, then that would mean that that model is not a good fit, okay? So these, because they form like a U shape, would be examples of ones that would not be good fit. Another one that you might see is if in a residual plot, and remember we're looking at residual plots, if your dots actually form a line, that's actually not a good thing for a residual plot. Now, if it was a scatter plot, that would be a good thing. But a residual plot, remember, is showing how far your dots are away from the line of best fit. And so if you have it forming a line like that, that's probably not a good thing. Okay, so you want to look out for that. All right. So some other examples would be like these, okay? And so before I talk about these examples, I do want to remind you of something. There's actually a couple ways to tell if a line's a good fit, and the first one was the residual plot. But the other one, remember, is you could look at the correlation coefficient, the R, and if the R, which is how well your dots form a line, if it's close to -1 or 1, then remember that means that it's going to be good to use to make predictions with. So also look at that, but then also you could look at the residuals. So if you look at the residual plot and the dots are clustered around the line, so it's kind of close to the x-axis, then the line would be a good fit for the data, and you could use it to predict values. So the closer that the dots are to that line, the better you'll be able to use it to predict values, okay? So like looking at these two examples, notice like for this one, with what we talked about a minute ago, the dots are kind of random, and there's about the same number of dots on one side as the other. So this could be a good residual plot showing that the line is a good fit for your data. But would it be a good predictor? Well, if you look at this one compared to that one, the dots are a little further away from the lines. So the further away the dots are from the line in the residual plot, then that means it may not be as good to make predictions with. So yes, this is a good fit for your data, or the line is a good fit for your data. The line is a good fit. However, when you're using it to make predictions, the predictions may not be as good, okay? The predictions that you make using that line of best fit may not be as good. And the reason for that is because those dots are a little further away from the line than in this example. So now in this one, the dots are pretty evenly kind of dispersed on both sides of the line. But this one, the dots are actually closer to the line. So this one would be a better one to use to make predictions, okay? So this one would be a good fit for your line. The line is a good fit because it's random and there's not really a pattern to it. But this one would actually make better predictions. So the predictions from this line would be better or closer to what would actually happen. Would be better. So that's how you look at a residual plot to tell if it would be a good fit for your line, and then also to tell if it would make good predictions using that line of best fit.